Hey everyone, it's Sarah from DBC. I'm our Deputy Minister of Digital Communication Design, and I'm here with Genevieve, our Deputy Prime Minister of Creative Innovation, I believe, a new
Yes.
title. We can talk about that a little
Yes.
more later. This is our second chat here, and I'm especially excited to talk to Genevieve because we both really love web design and nerding out about that, and we've talked about it before, so now we get to do that again and show it to other people. So she is a super friendly, awesome, talented coworker. You do work on so many kinds of cool projects that I want to hear more about. But first of all, I want to just get everyone on the same page about what your role is here with your very unique title and what kinds
Yeah.
of stuff you work on here at DBC.
Yeah. My team works on projects that kind of go beyond your bread and butter branding. So, from events and web and app and creating completely new solutions that maybe don't have clean cut definitions to like solve design problems and to kind of like explain that with an example. My first project in this new role was to make the first ever songwriter Wrapped happen. So Spotify Wrapped is a thing that's been around. We work with Notable on with songwriters, and they wanted to kind of like do something similar to Spotify Wrapped. And so there were no systems in place, there were no processes in place, there were no assets created. And so it was my job and my team's job to figure out like, how do we design 8,000 assets, store all those assets, be able to make them accessible in an instant, and send out 12,000 emails in an automated way so that we didn't have to copy and paste 8,000 links. So, like, that's the kind of nebulous problem solving that like my team does. Does that help kind of explain it a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a good explanation. I think when I first joined here, you were, what was the previous title? I think you were just doing more web design and then it's kind of
I
grown
was
into this.
Yeah, exactly. So I started at DBC actually 1 year ago today. It's like my 1 year as web design and development. So basically, I worked on all the web projects that came through. And then I took on this new role in October 2022.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad that we were able to plan this on your actual 1 year anniversary. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I want to know more about really all the projects you've worked on here. Like, obviously, not
Oh, God.
just Spotify and Notable, anything that you're like, I guess, allowed to talk about, whatever you think, like, what you've had the most fun with, what has been like really cool. I know we have done, like, as an agency, all of that really unique, cool stuff for Notable and Songwriter Wrapped, but what are some other projects or just industries that we've
Yeah.
worked with that you've enjoyed?
My first projects, I worked with Bank of America's Breakthrough Lab and with their first cohort, and that was like financial tech. So created websites for different fintech companies in early stage, and so that was really cool. With doing web designs, a lot of the web design projects we had were with sort of earlier stage startups and smaller businesses, which is always really cool because I would get to work directly with the founder and like help them bring their vision to life. And so, one of those that I did was with Chariot, and Chariot is moving company software. And like right now, I'm working with an IP management tech firm, which is it's like really cool because they're industries that I didn't necessarily work with previously. My design experience was more with creative small businesses prior to DBC, and I feel like I've gone more into tech and like sports. I've done at this point 3 different websites for squash tournaments, which is really cool. Tournament of Champions starts today, so I literally just launched a website like an hour and a half ago for that. So yeah, it's been cool to work on kind of projects across the board, from like really small ones to really big ones.
Yeah, that's awesome. And speaking of things that you worked on before with more creative industries, how did you find DBC and what were you doing before this?
Yeah, so I found DBC at the end of 2021. I had run kind of a one woman creative agency doing branding, web design, print collateral, all the things. And I'd had some success in 2021 and 2020 doing like white labeling designs for larger agencies. And I saw a posting for a Squarespace designer, and I was like, cool, yeah, I could take on a few Squarespace designs. So I had an interview with Clarissa, and in that interview, she said, I know you applied for like a freelance gig, but would you be open to full-time work? We have a large project, like a large contract coming up, and we'll need somebody full-time. And I said, I'm open to it. You know, that was kind of a big decision. It was a big shift because I had to like give up the business that I had been building. And I mean, clearly I said yes, like I'm here right now. But yeah, it was kind of an unexpected situation, like coming to DBC and ultimately working full time. But I'm really glad that I did. I had been feeling in my own business kind of burnt out on the sales and marketing side of things. I just wanted to do design and not focus on bringing everybody in. And so I feel like DBC became kind of the perfect solution for that, where I could have creative freedom and focus on the design and not have to focus on actually getting the clients. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to not have the constant stress of the freelancer life. No hate to freelancers.
Absolutely.
I think they're amazing, but
that steady paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And also, I guess going off of that, I would love to know about what you wish you had known earlier in your career after doing a little bit of freelance, also doing this other stuff, part-time stuff in between. What do you wish you had known earlier on?
I kind of wish that I knew that being able to communicate well and also have tech skills would be almost like a superpower. A lot of times you kind of get one or the other. And I think especially with web design and coding and the more sort of behind the scenes specialties, like being able to bridge that gap and explain in layman's terms what you're doing, and knowing sort of how to communicate with people, how to tell stories. It doesn't always come as naturally. And so my background is really in storytelling. I have a degree in creative writing, and after college, I started in publishing, and then I went into content marketing and design at a global nonprofit and then at a graduate school. And so I approach design from like a storytelling strategic perspective. And I think in general, I'm pretty good at communications, both with explaining what I'm doing and like making all of the moving parts come together and helping people understand what's happening and why. And I think had I understood what an asset that would be, I would have started coding and doing like web design and app design much earlier than I did. That was a very roundabout way of like answering your question. So
no, I think that's so interesting. And I also love when people bring up storytelling in design, because I think that's such an important part that's not like the core of what you think of when you're like, oh, I want to be a great designer someday. I should figure out how to tell like a good story first. But I think having that background, like those of us who have backgrounds in journalism like me, and then you with creative writing, all these things, like I know on my end, I personally, I don't like selling things to people. And I think that's why working in
Absolutely
marketing
not.
and the storytelling background actually works, because I'm just telling a story that may end up with
Yeah,
someone making a purchase or signing a contract, whatever that may be. But ultimately, as I'm putting together the actual work and the tangible stuff, it's just
yeah,
storytelling. As far as my brain is concerned, it might
exactly. And
actually be marketing.
I think it's a little bit of both because I still do marketing, right? Like when I present a concept to one of our citizens, I have to tell them why they should choose it. And so there is that element of telling the story behind the design, which is sort of a method of sales. But I'm like you. I feel better when I'm telling the story because, like, it's the truth, right? Like, if I create a design that was inspired by a piece of artwork and holds meaning to the organization that I'm working with, I want them to know that. I don't want them to just see a design without context and maybe not understand the meaning behind it. I think designing with intentionality and purpose will beat designing for aesthetics every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've already mentioned like the substance and the thought and the logistics behind something like what you did with Songwriter Wrapped. But are there any other like biggest successes you've seen at DBC and what that process was like? What's like the biggest, like most impressive result or like really great project that you've seen in your exactly 1 year of working here?
I mentioned before that we work with squash, and we've done a few squash tournaments. So previous to my time at DBC, squash tournament digital programs for Tournament of Champions and for the Oracle NetSuite Arena were printed. And for Tournament of Champions 2022, it was the first one. It was the first Tournament of Champions since COVID. So it was like kind of a big deal. Everybody was coming back to New York for the first time in years to congregate for this event. And they had never created a digital program before. And so I was able to create some systems, design a whole new site, and like essentially create a new process for disseminating the information at the tournament. So we were able to utilize QR codes throughout the event venue at Grand Central Terminal so that when users were there, it's a more eco-friendly design. You're not just handing out a pamphlet to every single person that walks through, which would then immediately go in the trash, right? And so QR codes for the people attending the tournament, but also because it's in a public location, it gives access to the public, right? Like anybody walking through Grand Central Terminal that passes by one of those signs can scan the QR code, see what's happening. And so that was really cool to like create an entirely new platform for an event that has been around for, at this point, like decades. I think since the 50s or 60s. So that was really cool. I feel like that was a pretty big success.
Nice. I had no idea it was that old. Cool.
Yeah. Like this year is the 25th year at Grand Central Terminal alone. Okay. And I'm just pulling up the website now that I launched this morning. Oh, the first one was in 1930.
Oh.
This is an old tournament. Yeah.
Oh, I honestly, I wasn't even sure how long squash has existed as a whole, let alone at this specific form.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That was one of the things when I first joined here. I was like, what are we doing with all this squash? There was
honestly,
so much
same.
Squash. And I had no idea what was going on, but I was just along for the ride. And
yes.
And now it's, yeah, we do so much work with it, and it is really cool. Like it's kind of one of those sports, and like the entire event is just like so, it's like niche, but
yeah.
yeah.
And it's interesting with the websites, I feel like we're able to push the boundaries a little bit and kind of bring squash into the present, be a little bit more innovative with the design, because it is sort of a more traditional sport, an older sport that has like a lot of history to it. So yeah, it's cool to work on those. It's also just very top of mind because I've been consumed by Tournament of Champions over the last few weeks.
Right. Right. Okay, well, I'll shift gears a little bit here, and I want to hear more about your thoughts and your experiences with DBC as an employer as a whole. I think we have a really interesting setup here, the way that we work remotely, our titles, the entire like hierarchy or non-hierarchy that we have here. How has DBC stood out as an employer, and how does it support you as a designer?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think I kind of like to describe it as autonomy with backup. So DBC has like an equitable culture of design communication. And so, you know, even if you have a supervisor or somebody who's sort of the project manager on a project, if you are the designer who's been working on an asset, you're the one who talks directly to our citizens about it. And so, you know, I have had a lot of creative freedom in the decisions that I make and what I'm able to create. And I've been able to communicate directly with our citizens and have the back and forth and receive the feedback that I need. But at the same time, I also know that I have backup to support me if I need to have a tough decision or if I need to bounce an idea off of someone. And so DBC for me has really struck that balance really well. And I mean, beyond that, we work remotely and we have like a relatively flexible schedule, which is great. So like if I need to go pick up my husband from work, I can kind of pause what I'm doing and go do that and then come home and continue on. Or like right now, we have like a small snowstorm. And so if I had needed yesterday to go to the grocery store and get some stuff before being completely snowed in, I have the freedom to do that. And so being able to have more of a lifestyle balance with my work has been really great.
Yep. I definitely like avoid peak times for things out and about.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll go to something at a weird time just for like a half hour or an hour just because
Yes.
I don't want to deal with like a Monday evening Target run. Ew.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I ever do that ever again?
Or like a cafe. Like I try not to get coffee at like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. when the rest of the world is doing it. But, you know, we can have our stand up at 9 a.m. my time. I finish, do some emails, do a little bit of work. And then at like 9:45 or 10:15 or something, I can go get a coffee and a pastry and like chill for a minute and then come and pick up my work again. So that's been really nice.
Yeah. I'm also definitely one of those weird people that I have realized actually since starting here at DBC, I am the most productive from exactly 9 o'clock p.m. to 11 o'clock p.m. I can get so much done in that weird 2 hour period at night.
Uh-huh.
So
Your brain's just firing
when I'm
off.
feeling it, yeah, my brain just kind of goes and I can get so much more done in those 2 hours. And then I can like have a chill afternoon one day. Like that flexibility has
Yeah.
been so nice.
And I'm sort of the opposite. So at one point in my life, I was a complete and total night owl. Like I would be most productive from maybe like 11 to 1 a.m. Which like the world doesn't work that way. So that was like not great for me at that time. But more recently I've been waking up earlier. And so a lot of times like I will start my day at DBC between like 7 and 8 a.m. my time. And not having like a set work hours where I have to have my butt in the chair from, say, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. is great, because if I start a little earlier, I get everything done. I can knock off a little earlier, you know? But if there's a day where I have to work later, maybe I start a little bit later. And so, yeah, being able to flex and kind of listen to my body and what it needs as well. Like if I need to sleep in that day, I can sleep in, you know? It's great.
Yeah, it is really nice. But I think on like the opposite side of that, and especially as we're considering the citizen perspective, the clients and people we work with,
Yeah.
can you share a little more about what it looks like to work with DBC on the citizen side? Just because I think as employees, we're like, oh, we love this flexibility. We can switch around things as we need, but we're also like an incredibly responsive, really like cohesive,
Yeah.
strong remote team. So I think it also needs to be said that that happens as well here.
For sure. And I think ultimately the flexibility kind of works for the citizen, because if we have something that's last minute and we need people to work late at night and kind of flex their hours so that they're working later to get something done to launch it in time, we can. Or earlier, or, you know, we have people across time zones. And so, for example, tomorrow afternoon at 4:30 my time, I have a meeting with a citizen. On the East Coast, that's 6:30 p.m. That might not work for everybody, right? But because we have people kind of across time zones and teams are split across time zones, I feel like we're actually able to kind of better serve and have more responsive communication. But I think it's also something that, I mean, I personally work really hard on being open with my communication and kind of almost in a proactive way. So like if I know I'm going to be out, or if I'm traveling, or if I have something, I will not schedule a meeting during that time, right? Like if I know every Thursday I have to go pick up my husband from work and it's usually from this time to that time, as the employee, I can flex my schedule. As the person who's serving a citizen, I'm not going to schedule a meeting during that time because I know that I'm not available. And so making sure that I know what my citizens' availability is also helps with kind of service and communication with that.
Do you have any other like things to talk about the uniqueness of DBC and our remote work? What not only what that looks like in terms of our availability, but how does that affect the overall quality or speed of what we're creating?
Yeah, I think having the flexible time allows us to kind of work in the zone. And so with creative work, I mean, there's brainstorming sessions, there's drafting, and then there's sort of finalizing. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like if I'm designing something and I'm feeling it, I can go for 4 hours or 5 hours and like not take a break, right? And so sometimes that means I'm working like into the night a little bit without even realizing it and not being upset about it. I'm just like really glad that I hit the groove and I'm getting things done. And so being able to flex time and work with a more varied schedule, I think allows for an enhanced creative process so that you're working within less rigid confines to get things done, so that at DBC we can not only get things done, but just get them done better.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think creative careers, like you can't do an exact 9 to 5 and force your creativity
Exactly.
into that block of time in the day. Or like you
Right.
can, but it's not going to be as good.
Right. I mean, sometimes if I have a project where I'm working on naming, that doesn't look the same every single time. sometimes I'm writing things on a piece of paper. Sometimes I'm sitting at a computer looking at related words. Sometimes I need to go take a walk so that I can just like let things marinate. And, you know, if after my walk, I'm making myself some tea and there's a spark, I'm like, oh, that would be a really good name. Great. I'll write it down. Like, just having the flexibility to kind of dictate my own creative process in the way that best works for me has been key in creating like the best and the most innovative pieces that I can for our citizens. And I think because everybody at DBC is able to figure out their own processes, they have the freedom to figure out their own personal creative processes within the bounds of working at the organization. I think that's probably the same across the board.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think my creative process, I've discovered so much about like what I need in order to like work my best. Because before it's always been within the confines of the rigid
Exactly,
work
your
structure.
desk.
And now I'm like, oh, I know what I need personally, and that has been so helpful.
Yes,
Like personally, professionally, emotionally, even like
for sure.
it's so much better. Yeah, I think you were doing the weird walks before that was a thing. I don't know if anyone else has seen this. Do we know about the weird walks?
Absolutely.
Yeah, where like
Yeah.
the concept of like you just go on a walk until you find something weird and then you just walk back. It
Yeah.
does wonders for creativity and like newness and just like getting the gears turning. I love it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Everybody at DBC should do weird walks. Everyone ever watching this should go on a
We
weird walk
should,
after you do this and let us know how it goes.
well, we should take like a little photo of whatever the weird thing is that we find and then
Yeah.
post it in our group chats.
Oh, we should. Oh, that'd be fun. Okay, I might have to go on a weird
Yeah.
walk today, and I'll get that going.
Okay, I'll do the same. Well, it's snowing, so maybe I'll do the same. But I might just show you a photo of like some snow.
Good enough for
Good
today.
enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have gone through really everything that I wanted to ask you. I feel like we got some really cool answers, and you gave a good like perspective on really anything and everything that we work on here. So now I have some rapid fire questions for you to finish
All right,
finish us
hit me.
off. Are you ready?
No, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Okay,
That's my
I believe in
philosophy
you.
on life.
I believe in you. Okay. First one. I have to go back a little bit for this. Favorite memory of Summit Toronto.
I hate that I'm going to say this, but karaoke. Like, I genuinely thought that I was going to hate it, but like, it was surprisingly fun. I mean, Zoe and I sang Backstreet Boys together. How it doesn't get better than that.
I didn't want to go to that either, but yeah, I had a great time.
I was so nervous because also, like, I'm sorry, I know this is supposed to be rapid fire, but like, we didn't really know each other. And so we're having this karaoke session with like people that we've only really spent time with online. And Sarah, I imagine it was even more like anxiety ridden for you because you were the newest member of the team. Like you'd only been working at DBC for what, a month and a half at that point?
Like barely a month and a half. And then next thing I know, and Clarissa was my manager at the time, and we were singing We Don't Talk About Bruno together.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
It was quite the time. Okay. Rapid fire. Back into it.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay.
No. What's your favorite place on the internet?
Goodreads and the Washington Post crossword puzzle.
Nice. Favorite place in real life?
Outdoors. I love an alpine lake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you listen to anything while working?
Depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing sort of more tedious things, sometimes a podcast. Most recently, Normal Gossip and Out Alive. I've been on a survivalist kick. And then for more focused work, I'll put on Chill Hop.
Nice. Best book you've read recently?
Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. I listened to the audiobook. It was so good.
All right. Well, favorite podcast you kind of already mentioned, but do you have like a one ultimate podcast to rule them all?
That's a hard question. Limetown, but only the first season.
Okay. Favorite music?
Like indie, folk, pop, rock, stuff.
Nice. Same. Favorite movie?
So like my that's so hard. One of my favorite movies is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but I think the best movie soundtrack is Garden State.
Ooh, okay. I like it. Like it. All right, that was all we had. I feel like I have so many. I'm getting amazing media recommendations from everyone on this. I need to like put them all into one massive list because
Wait,
everybody has such good ideas.
can I get them from you too? Is that allowed? Am I allowed to ask you like your best books and
My
podcasts and all of
favorite?
that?
Oh,
Yeah,
geez. Best book I've read recently. I gotta think about it. I am literally living out of suitcases right now, and I have
that's true.
six
You did
books.
just move.
I have 6 books with me. Why do I have 6? I'm gonna be overweight on my luggage. Anyway, um, I'm reading Between Two Kingdoms right now, and I love
Okay,
it.
I've heard good things about that book.
Yeah. So that's like not read recently, but currently reading,
Sure.
I guess. Also, my favorite movie is Inception. Yeah, I have a specific playlist I just made since being here called my like homey comfort playlist, and it's like songs that make me feel
Nice.
like I'm in Ohio. Specifically, I saw something about Noah Kahan's latest album. I don't know if you either of you listen to him.
Yeah.
Someone said that his music makes you hate your hometown and be homesick at the same time. And I think that's why I like it so much.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, so I've been listening to a lot of like more indie folk things.
Yeah. I've been on like a Hosier kick.
Oh yeah, that too.
I don't know why, but just for whatever reason, I've been listening to a lot of Hosier.
Yeah. It's either folk or Broadway for me. I don't
Wow,
in between.
yeah, that's an interesting spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I do. Um okay, I feel like we've got some pretty good clips here.